Welcome back to another episode of Social Impact Live with Darrell Coleman. Today we continue our series about demotivation. What is it that demotivates us to create social change in the world? On today's episode, I want to talk about the concept of being pulled in two different directions by our values. So conflicted values. For many of us, whenever we think about doing social impact, we think about creating change in the world, and we think about the energy that it's going to take for us to do that. We have to think about where that energy is coming from and what it could be directed to instead. Oftentimes, this manifests as a conflict of values. An example that comes to mind is a friend of mine, right, that I spoke with recently. And it was a conflict between creating social change in the world, using her energy to go out and affect the lives of people outside of her own home, or creating change in her own home and using that energy for her own children, right? That felt like a conflict of values. Do I value my kids and the time that I'm able to spend with them more and what I'm able to invest in them? Or do I value the investments that I can make elsewhere, right? The contributions that I have for people whom I don't know. In a lot of ways, when I think of social impact, I think that to really get to the point where we are feeling the effects of what it could be and we're generating for our society, the outcomes that it could have, we do need to extend ourselves to the point where we are helping people who we don't necessarily know. I think almost all of us are inclined to help our own family members. We want to help our own kids. We want to help our own spouse or our own partner. We want to help our own siblings at times. Sometimes we need a little bit of work there as well, right? But our goal needs to be, can we get to the point where we are caring for people who don't necessarily return the favor to us, right? A lot of our family members, they return the value of care to us. We have this sort of communal aspect to it. And I think that the goal needs to be, can we help people who aren't necessarily going to reciprocate something to us, where there's not something for us to gain in response, but we can actually affect their lives and recognize that that's a positive thing to do regardless. But I say, I do think that this work needs to start at home. We do need to make sure that we are affecting the lives of our family members and those who are close to us as well. If we were to go out and help the entire world, but our own family is in need and we're not seeing that, if we're a father who works every single day to serve the needs of the community, but his own kids, our own kids, right, aren't being fed, aren't being nurtured the way that they need to be by their father, aren't being treated in a way that's going to help them grow into the men or the women that they need to become, then we're missing something, right? And so it is important that we balance both. And I recognize that this can feel like a conflict of values at times. And so for anyone who's experiencing that as a demotivator, where you're saying to yourself, I have a limited amount of energy. How can I use that energy well to affect the lives of other people in the world when I have to choose between using it to help my kids and using it to help others, or maybe it's two different values for you? Here's what I would say. Figure out how you can make one of these values serve the other, okay? A lot of this comes back down to this vision that I talked about yesterday. What is the vision that we have for ourselves? What is the vision that you have for yourself, for who you want to be in the world, right? Whenever you think about yourself, maybe you're approaching the end of your life, you're old in your days and you've gathered people around you. What is it that they're saying about you, about what you did, about how you contributed to the world at that time? Having that vision for yourself will help you figure out how the values that you feel like are in conflict right now align with one another. And so I'll just give you a quick example here from the one that I've been using. When it comes down to investing in your kids, right, or investing in others in the community, then the question becomes, how can one of these things serve the other? And the thing that naturally comes to mind for me is, how can investing in my kids begin to serve the community, right? There's one aspect of that where what I pour into them, right, it makes them better citizens and better citizens overall, right? So that they're able to contribute to the world. But the other is, how can I bring them along with me, right? How can I teach them what it means to serve others by serving alongside them? So can we go to the soup kitchen together? Can we pack up meals together? Can we go collect socks together for people who are homeless? Can we do the service activities together in order to both enrich my kids and to enrich my society as a whole? Can this be a lesson for them, something that I leave them with, right? That makes the world better, makes them better, both at the same time. I call this a mutually beneficial situation, a mutually beneficial outcome. In almost everything I'm looking for, and almost everything I'm doing, I'm looking for some sort of mutually beneficial outcome. And I truly believe that doing social impact work in the world is mutually beneficial in that the person who does that work, whether it's directly tied to an outcome or not, feels something associated with being able to do that work. But it's often invisible, right? But there are ways to make that more explicit as well. And that is something that we can do as we align our conflicting values. So the task for you, if you feel like this is you have this conflict of where you want to put your energy, is to figure out how can you align these two things. How can your service work that you want to do, which you feel conflicts with the time you're going to spend on your job, think of ways. Is it possible for that service work to in some way enhance your job or job performance? Is there something you can learn from doing that service work, right? That you can commute over or transmit over to your job? Is there some sort of overlapping skill set that you can get from the service side of what you do that can be brought into your other work as well? Or maybe it's vice versa. All right. So those are my thoughts for the day. Those are my thoughts on how you can increase your motivation, right? Or reduce this demotivation. And part of that comes down to reducing the conflict, the tension between the values that you have and figuring out how you can align them instead, right? So they lead to you becoming the person that you want to be, right? If you are interested in more tips and more tricks around gaining motivation to do social impact, go watch the previous episodes. This is number 5, right? Lesson 5 specifically. There were 6 total. And the first day I started off talking about the need for proximity and empathy. So go watch those episodes and you'll see how they all string together to give you sort of a cohesive flow. There's a few more coming, but that's what I have for you today. If you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, go ahead and leave those in the comments. Like, follow, and subscribe. If you're watching this on Twitter, go ahead and hit that follow button. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that follow button. We can continue to build a community of social impact innovators and entrepreneurs who are making the world a better place. All right, I will talk to you tomorrow.